morning on this wonderful Wednesday. I'm Dr. Lisa Lindsay Wicker, President and CEO of Linwick and Associate and a visionary for Career Mastered. I am ecstatic once again to be here with you. And for those of you who join us today, we have a marvelous guest. I'll be introducing her shortly. But for now, I often start with just letting you know what we're doing at Career Mastered. Career Mastered has been in existence for going on 11 years now, but the magazine was introduced in 2018 in New York, Charlotte, and Detroit. And we're ecstatic about the opportunity to tell your story, to establish a presence in the marketplace globally about women who are lifting each other, women who are celebrating each other, women who are supporting each other, and women who are in the business, compelling themselves to do the business of business. And so we're ecstatic today to tell you that this month, May, has been a whirlwind, but one that we are truly, truly joyful about. And we're certainly making an impact. We started out this month with Career Master Brunch with the Masters series, which is a signature program that we have had in place also for about 10 years. And this program really allows us to have an opportunity to meet with women from around various cities. We started it back some time ago at Macy's in their stores, and we took it as a part of the summit. And now we're pulling it ahead again as we go into cities to establish a community of women who are absolutely having the appropriate discussions about women in leadership. And so we just finished the New York Brunch with the Masters, where we met Pat Healy, who was one of our honorees this year, and the author of Meet 100 People. Pat joined us there at Hotel Indigo, and it culminated with us having the privilege as a group from Career Masters to be on the floor at the New York Stock Exchange. What an experience. I got to tell you, the 20 delegations that represented Career Mastered, you all would have been proud. We were from 10 states on the same day, traveling into New York to have the experience of Investing Day and, of course, May Day. What a wonderful opportunity. So I just want to publicly thank the Stock Exchange Chairman, Sharon Bowen, the Senior Director of the Member Services of the New York Stock Exchange, Suzanne Brown, along with her team. They did an exceptional job. And of course, to all of the delegations that attended that with us. And then we went yesterday, we were in the glorious, wonderful Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, where we had an opportunity to have close to 100 women in one space with the opportunity to make connections around the theme, Making Connections. It starts with her at the Myers Park Country Club. Our top awardee was with us, of course, April Simpkins. She received the Resilience Award and participated with us in a panel discussion where we spoke and talked with women about challenges that they have, triumphs that they have. What does it take to make sure that we have an opportunity for a global career? Some of the strategies that it requires in terms of the connections that we make. And of course, we're on our way to Detroit. Detroit is going to be fabulous as well on May the 20th, where we will have the chance to be speaking with Ariva Martin. So if you haven't heard and met Ariva Martin, please take the moment to maybe look her up and understand who she is. A powerful civil rights attorney, multi-award-winning host, a CNN contributor, and also a woman who is an advocate for autism. And so we have so many things to talk with her about, but she was a top honoree this year for Career Master as a trailblazer. And so we're excited because we'll have women from various aspects and industries in Detroit meet us there. And now for the spring magazine, we still have copies, and that released in, I believe, the beginning of May. So please stop in to careermaster.com and pick up your copy today, because Talia Fox is on the cover, and we're talking with her about conscious connections. She's the author of that book, and certainly she knows a thing or two about making conscious, intentional connections. But today, our guest is with us, and I'd like to bring her on. Good morning, Sally.
Good morning, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Oh, I'm ecstatic. So let's get started. I'm going to introduce Sally. If you can hear me, I'd like to welcome you. Our audience is really going to hear great, I call it tips and gems from someone who knows the arena of leadership. But I'd like to tell you a little bit more about her. Sally is the founder and CEO of Curley. I think I got that right. Global IR, a strategic consultancy specializing in governance, capital markets, and corporate sustainability. With over 35 years of corporate experience, she has led global investor relations, governance, engagement, and ESG programs for Fortune 500 companies, including Cardinal Health, I think it's Genzyme Corporation, now Sanofi. And at Cardinal Health, she served as Senior Vice President of Investor Relations, overseeing worldwide IR and governance outreach, and co founded the company's first ESG committee. Now, about her education, Sally has earned a BA from Colby College and an MBA from Northeastern University. She is a National Investor Relations Institute Fellow and chaired the committee responsible for creating NIRI Body of Knowledge, the basis for IR certification. I could go on, but let's tap in and get to know Sally. Whoa, that's a lot.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Love it. I love it. So welcome to the show. I'm really ecstatic that I have an opportunity this year to meet you because you were nominated for a Career Mastered Award and received that selection this year. So congratulations, Sally.
And thank you again. Thank you very, very much, both for the nomination. I have to give a shout out to Cindy Burrell on that. Thank you very much. And to you, Lisa, for your support.
Thank you. Cindy is a woman that is close to my heart, and she was with us in New York as well. And so I can't wait to hear from her. I know she's traveling right now, but let's start with your backstory. Tell us about your career and what inspired you to launch your organization, Curley Global IR.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as you mentioned, long career in investor relations, and really started actually out thinking that I would go into law, and immediately post college did a stint in a law firm. Realized that traditional corporate law was not for me, and sought another job, and happily and to a certain extent, very luckily landed a role at a biotech company in investor relations, both where biotech was in its infancy and investor relations was still in its infancy as a discipline. So fast forward to a long career in corporate, and I had this idea to start a consultancy that was more of a hub and spoke, or a consortium consultancy is what I call it. About 8 years ago, I retired from Cardinal Health with the intent to stand up Curley Global IR LLC, or CGIR, you'll hear me call it. And, the rest is sort of history. I do have to say, I am so grateful to the individuals all throughout my career, but in particular those that supported me early in my career, because they really exposed me to investor relations, governance, engagement, and deep corporate governance, as well as what we call then corporate social responsibility and sustainability. Mm-hmm. And I've been able to practice those skill sets, ever since. So it's a shout out to everybody who nurtured and supported me in that career.
Thank you for that, because I'm really certainly at this stage in my life pretty intrigued with investor relations. Tell me, what is the mission of your company, and how are you uniquely positioned to provide the services you do in the industry?
So as you mentioned, it's a strategic consultancy, and as I just reviewed, I had this idea to have a consortium consultancy. So it's really based on the 3 pillars of experience that I've had these many years. And I also knew at the same time that I needed to have a support network. And I didn't want to go this solo. Legally, I wanted to be the sole proprietor, but I didn't operationally want to be the sole proprietor. So the consultancy was really launched and built in 2017 based on 3 things. And the first was finding the right partners. And I say that from a non-legal perspective, but finding those incredible collaborators with whom and to whom we could partner and refer work.
Mm-hmm.
And that just goes to servicing clients with excellence. And so that was the first thing. The second thing was, how best to structure that. And as I mentioned, it came down to a hub and spoke or a consortium consultancy. So the collaborator experience that I have now with my 5 partners includes investment banking. It includes investment fund proxy compliance leads on the institutional investing side, pure governance, environmental sustainability, graphic design, executive coaching, and then the more traditional corporate communications. So it's great because these people, I can go a mile deep in almost all of these, in all of these areas. They can go 6 miles deep.
Wow.
And they have the nuances. So it makes for a very compelling offering for the client.
Wow. Well, the world of investor relations probably is changing like everything else around us. What are the biggest shifts you've seen recently? Are there any major shifts that you've seen that you can call out?
I have. It started, so the discipline started out and it remains today as the confluence or the intersection of finance, legal, and communications.
Okay.
So I was listening to your interview with Jennifer Schiller, and she was talking about the right brain, left brain.
Yep.
You absolutely have to have that, I believe, to be successful in investor relations. Today, it has evolved to include much more corporate governance. Interaction with boards is paramount when you're a senior investor relations officer. And then also corporate sustainability, or ESG, as the polarized acronym it has become. That all is integral to investor relations. You are the face of the company to Wall Street, but you are also the face of Wall Street to the company. And that means the C-suite and the boards. And so it's a heady balance. You've got to, understand U.S. securities laws intimately, and you're held accountable to the same level that the C-suite and the boards are.
Wow. Wow. Well, what do you think, if I'm thinking about investing, or, maybe you're working with just companies, but what makes for an effective, trusted IR leader in today's market?
In any market, I would argue, particularly in down markets, but in any market, credibility is everything. Again, you are the public face of the company to the capital markets. And so when you footfall, it reflects poorly on the organization. And so really knowing the business, and that requires you to build relationships across teams, across levels. In addition to that, understanding what you know and what you don't know.
Yeah.
And then certainly having a deep, deep, deep understanding of U.S. securities laws. And the other piece, which is more nuanced, but it really makes the investor relations officers, the successful ones, stand out, is really listening. You have to listen to what the individual is asking you, to what that portfolio manager is asking you. Whether you're the one in the room responding or whether you're sitting with your CEO or CFO and they're responding, really listening to see what's the question behind the question and making sure that you can address that.
Wow. Well, certainly I'm looking at my portfolio daily because the changes are just so uncertain, and you don't know whether it's a gain or a loss. It's just craziness right now. How do companies manage these expectations or investor expectations in these times? I mean, is it something that you just already said, like you have to trust the person, but how do they manage? I mean, I was listening to, and I'm not even asking you that you have all the answers. We're just having the conversation about it, because I was listening to one of the major automotive companies, like when, let's say, the tariffs first started, and they were so confident in what they thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
And just yesterday, it's a whole different response from that same company CEO about what they have to do inside of this constant change in the marketplace. How do companies operate this way?
It's very difficult to manage in uncertain times, and we're certainly in a time of uncertainty. Um, there are changes and shifts geopolitically every day that organizations are having to manage through, not just at the C-suite level, but at the middle manager level as well. And that impacts all employees throughout the organization. And so from an investor relations and capital markets standpoint, I think, in these times of crisis or turbulence, it really falls on the investor relations officer, the IRO, to be calm, to not overpromise, but to deliver the facts as the organization sees them in that moment, understanding that things might change as the facts and circumstances change. And so, calm is critical. You think about all of the events that we've gone through over the last 30 or 40 years in the capital markets, and we've seen a lot. We've seen terrorism. We've seen the 2008, 2009 crisis. At Cardinal Health, we made a decision at that point, just prior to the crisis really coming to a head. We had made a decision as an organization to spin off a huge piece of our business, which at the time was the biggest capital equipment piece and spinoff that had ever been done. And so we put our heads down and sort of plowed through it, and thankfully it was successful. But I think, you have to be calm, you have to persevere, you've got to have a lot of determination.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to course correct when necessary.
What about the small business person or just even the small investor? They just have to stay watchful or hopeful, I guess, that they don't lose the little that they have, I'm sure. Or should they find, not that you're given that advice, but an expert that can help them navigate through these particular trends and times?
Yeah. Well, I have to be careful because I am not an investment advisor.
Yeah.
So I can't provide investment advice. What I do in investor relations is really represent the public companies
Okay.
to the professional investing community. And so the portfolio managers really are the people that are managing our money, your portfolio and my portfolio. And I hope that they have the experience and the gravitas to be able to manage through this over the long term.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I'm watching.
We were talking earlier and both commenting about how as small business owners, I think the unintended consequences are that, everyone is feeling it. It's not just large organizations, but we're all at a time where we're trying to really navigate through how we're going to best position the business for our clients and our customers. And so,
absolutely.
From an investor standpoint, though, I'm, hope is not a strategy, but we trust the professionals that they can make good investments.
Absolutely. Hope is not a strategy, but it is part of the process. So
it is indeed.
Let's talk a little bit about ESG, because I know with the current trends and insights, there's change there, but ESG still continues in some ways to be in headlines here and there. How should companies integrate it or think about it now? And what part of that continues to be very important given the current state of where we are as a country, actually?
Yeah, for me, it's sad because I think that the acronym has become so polarizing and politicized that it takes away actually from the underlying components and the good that it's doing for companies and at large, writ large for the world. We have definitely seen companies pulling back, not necessarily from initiatives, but from they're being much more careful about disclosures.
Yeah.
And I think there have been enough public articles written by the media about organizations that have stopped using the word or the acronym ESG and opted for other terms.
Right. Right.
The way that my company approaches it, the way that the team approaches it is and we've actually published on this, it's really about risk assessment. And so if you pick apart each one of the acronyms, and I'm going to start with governance because governance is really the cornerstone of any good organization, private or public.
True.
Good governance has been around since the 17th century.
Yeah.
And the term corporate governance was first used in the Federal Register in 1976.
Wow.
Which I think is interesting. I had expected it to be actually, frankly, a little bit older than that, but it was first used in the Federal Register in 1976. So every entity should be grounded in good governance. If you then pivot to the E and the S, environmental and human capital and community initiatives and community involvement, or stakeholder engagement is probably the best word to use, we advise that, and it's really about risk mitigation. So if you think about E, S, and G as a set of tools to assess, to identify, assess, and mitigate risk,
yes,
then you've grounded everything into a business case. And risk mitigation for boards, for C-suite, for organizations is just as important as good governance. It's a piece of good governance, right? And so, what and how these tools are used in any organization really depends on, the priorities of the organization in terms of goals, their risk appetite, their disclosure requirements and appetite, and their corporate culture. And so anytime that we advise clients, we build bespoke programs for the clients based on their individual needs and wants, but we ground them in this business case.
Wow. I tell you, we have a lot to learn yet. I think that the wonderful thing is no matter what's going on, it's keeping us all on our toes and having us have a chance to either pivot or regroup or transition, and we're constantly changing. So I don't think that's a bad thing, right?
It's definitely not. It makes it, if you have the intellectual curiosity, I think you're going to be successful in any field, and particularly in fields that are rapidly evolving like ESG.
Right. Well, Sally, I know that you're familiar with boards and boards operations and governance. What governance priorities do you believe boards should focus on in 2025 and or beyond?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think from reading and by the way, if you're interested in this topic, I'll just say there are a number of wonderful law firms that actually blog about the proxy season and what to look for. And so that's a great way to keep up to speed there, on the topic. I do, and I work with quite a few law firms. The three areas, there's sort of the traditional areas that you would always see, which are, the structure of the board, diversity on the board, not just in skill sets, but obviously in representation, board refreshment. So you don't want stale boards.
Right.
Risk management, which we just talked about, stakeholder engagement, which is always a focus. And then, benchmarked and appropriate compensation. But if I pivot to what is really top of mind over the last, 24 months and even the last 4 months, it's digital infrastructure. And so it's AI, cybersecurity, policies, training, compliance. You just have to look at what happened in Spain with the blackout.
Yep.
You look at what happened in New Jersey with the air traffic controllers, right? Whether or not it's an act of terrorism, you have to look at your infrastructure and redundancies, both geographically and system-wide. The other component is obviously anti-ESG sentiment. We talked about it being a polarizing topic right now. And so public company boards are really dealing with shareholder proposals around a particular area of ESG, be it diversity, equity, and inclusion or environmental. And then the third area is just the geopolitical risk that you and I spoke of earlier, which is, how do you navigate tariffs? I mentioned to you as we were chatting, if we have time, I'll mention it here. Regardless of the industry, the fact that so many regulatory agencies in DC have been scaled back creates additional cost for companies, and particularly smaller companies. And so for companies, for example, that I represent in healthcare that are smaller, if they've been working with a group of people, a team at the FDA, and that team now has been furloughed, that relationship may have been built over a year and a half, 2 years. They now are in a position to almost start over. And that's daunting and time intensive and costly for organizations.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I got to tell you, I could probably talk all day with you, but I'd like, because you have such a success record in this space of investor relations, board governance, and sustainability, corporate sustainability. I'd like to ask you a little bit about your success journey. What personal habits or mind shifts have helped you as a CEO? How are you doing?
I've been, the older you get, I find that you get more reflective. And so as I age, and particularly now, being in the corporate world, but not being in the corporate seat,
Yes.
I've had a little more time to be reflective and strategic and planful. And so I try to go back through past actions and think about what the motivations were and the perspectives were for the people that I was dealing with. I can't right or correct the situation, but to the extent that I can avoid it in the future and pay it forward through mentoring or through, engagement with companies or telling somebody a funny anecdote,
Yes.
Or buying somebody a cup of coffee to put a smile on their face. Those are all the types of things that I try to bucket under this pay it forward. And I think that helps to keep me more grounded than I was certainly during stressful times in my corporate career. And so that's helped me during the stressful times in this part of the career. So, and there've been such wonderful mentors and sponsors along the way, many of whom have been women. They're too numerous to name here, the women and men, but I do just broadly want to thank them for supporting and nurturing me in my career.
Wow. And how have you helped other women? Are you lifting? I'm sure you are, and engaging with them. It's so important for us to reach back, especially now as you and I are in this space of, the next phase of after corporate life.
Absolutely.
How are you lifting others up?
Absolutely. I have about a half a dozen former direct reports that I mentor. 4 of them are women. And so to the extent that, I'm trying to help them in any way I can further advance personally and professionally, that's one of the things that I'm doing actively. Obviously trying to be involved in organizations such as yours, such as Cindy Burrell's as much as possible. And then, when I was at corporate, we had a women's initiative network and I sat on the steering committee. And so really trying to be as much as possible and wherever I can, being a champion of women leaders and women excelling, whatever the profession and whatever the field of discipline. I think, just we need to lift each other up, as you said.
Right now, community is important. We talked about that yesterday, where we had the women in Charlotte together. How we need at this very moment in time in the world that we live in, community, that we're not by ourselves, that we're constantly thinking about our own mental capacities and where we are physically, and just to ensure that we're not alone. And if you need to talk, you got groups like Career Master that are here.
Absolutely.
Let's have a little fun quickly. We got about 1 minute, but we can do this. So let's have a little fun. I call it my lightning round. So why don't you tell us quickly what book most influenced your leadership journey?
Early in my career, there are a lot of books that come to mind, but early in my career, I had the great fortune of hearing Deborah Benton speak.
Okay.
And she wrote a book called Lions Don't Need to Roar. And that book really, I still go back to that book and read that book. There's so many wonderful little snippets in that book.
Yeah.
I think more recently I've been reading things that aren't necessarily grounded in business, but that are more, that are a little bit more female focused. So a very good friend and one of my supporters and sponsors over the years gave me the book Dinners with Ruth by Nina Totenberg. which was incredible. And then also recently, and I'm in the middle of reading The Code Girls by Liza Mundy, which is about the women in WW2 in the Second World War that actually were responsible for coding. You hear a lot about the British coding and Enigma, but you don't hear that much about the female soldiers during World War II in America that actually were instrumental.
That reminds me of the movie that was just out. It just slips me about where Kerry Washington was in about the
exactly.
That was excellent.
It was. There's so many wonderful learning moments in those books, though.
I appreciate you being here today. It's been very, very enlightening about the world that you're in. You know, you can read somebody's bio, you can read somebody's background, but to have the face-to-face opportunity and to hear your story from you has been a tremendous insight for me. Leave me and the audience, if you will, with one career master moment advice, just a word or a quote.
I'll leave you with two words: determination and intellectual curiosity. And then maybe it's not a quote, but it's just a thought. I would just say, never, ever let anyone hold you back. If you have to take another role, take another role. If you have to leave, if you've got to start your own business, do it. But don't ever let someone hold you back.
That's my book. Shatter the limits and don't accept any limitations. Thank you so very much. I have enjoyed it. We're going to connect.
Yes.
And I appreciate all that you do and continue to be great, be profound, and continue the mastery of your career.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you again.
Thank you. That was Sally J. Curley. Oh my gosh. Awesome. I could listen to her all day. In fact, I have to get back with her because there are a couple of things that she said that I am just so intrigued about. But she dropped some wisdom this morning on everything from starting her firm to investor relations that truly reflect her purpose and really these times, quite frankly. If there's one thing to take away from the day is you don't have to land in rooms. You prepare, you connect, and you show up with intentions, but like she says, determination, and don't accept limitations. To learn more about Sally's work, check out the show replays. We will be replaying this on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and Facebook. And if you enjoyed this episode, please review and comment after you listen in the replays and share it with someone who needs to hear the conversation. And let's just say we are on our way to Detroit with Career Mastered for Brunch with the Masters again. We talked about the fact that we had just had New York and then Charlotte yesterday, and we're on our way to Detroit. So until next time, keep showing up, be iconic and presence and power, and join us in our membership if you so choose. Thank you so very much, and we'll see you next Wednesday.